Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Party just had what can only be described as a full-blown five-alarm DEFCON 1 political meltdown because Donald J. Trump posted about Iran. I mean, we went from good morning to remove him immediately in about 12 minutes flat. You can't even make this stuff up. I mean, they're out here screaming genocide, war crimes, waving around the 25th Amendment like it was a Groupon coupon. I mean, Ilhan Omar, AOC, half of Congress basically acting like the apocalypse had been scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern. But here's where it gets rather awkward, okay? While all of this dramatic music was playing in the background, while the talking heads were over at CNN, they were warming up their "this is the end" monologues, Iran didn't escalate, they didn't retaliate, they didn't launch World War III. They folded. They made a deal.
Iran has been a threat to the United States and the free world for 47 years. Chants of death to America, targeting our people, killing Americans, lying and blackmailing their way toward a nuclear weapon, so they thought. No longer. Not on our watch. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough.
Now, let me get this straight. We had politicians hyperventilating on camera, predicting the end of civilization and the world as we know it. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, a ceasefire is getting signed like it's a Tuesday afternoon real estate closing. You can't even make this stuff up. And now, it gets even better than that because everything that they said, everything that they pushed, everything that they demanded is now sitting there like expired milk in the sun. We're going to go ahead and break down everything that happened, how this whole thing unraveled step by step, because what you were told versus what actually happened, yeah, those are not even the same universe. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and if you like watching narratives fall apart in real time, by the end of this video, if you're thinking to yourself and you're shaking your head like there's no way they walked into that, do me a favor and hit the like button on the way out. And hey guys, real quick, if you know someone that you care about who needs help with Medicare, there is free help through Chapter down in the description down below this video. You should also see their phone number on your screen right here, totally free. So here's how this whole thing kicked off. Donald J. Trump puts out a statement. Donald J. Trump puts out a statement about Iran, talking about ending a 47-year regime, specifically the IRGC, and within minutes, boom, the Democratic Party hits full panic mode. I mean, we're talking about instant escalation, not let's wait and see, not let's clarify. No. We went straight to, he's about to destroy a civilization. This is genocide. This is the end of the world. This is World War III. I mean, you would have thought that the missiles were already in the air based on how they're responding. But here's the wild part. They didn't even stop to read the full statement, because if they did, they would have seen the line that says, "God bless the people of Iran." But no, too late. Narrative has already been locked in, and now the media, especially CNN, starts pouring gasoline on it.
Yesterday in your Truth Social, you called the Iranians crazy bastards.
True.
What is your response to critics who say that...
I don't care about critics.
What is your response to critics who say that it is your mental health that should perhaps be examined as this war continues?
I haven't heard that. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me, because our country was being ripped off on trade, on everything, for many years until I came along.
Suddenly, it's not just concern, it's hysteria, it's outrage, it's full-blown political theater. And you can feel it building, because once they go this far, there is no walking it back. And right on cue, here comes the big move, the nuclear option, and the "we've completely lost it" option. I mean, the 25th Amendment. So over 70 Democrats, yes, 70 start pushing to remove Donald J. Trump from office. Not after investigation, not after action, after a post. And leading the charge, you've got Ilhan Omar saying Trump must be removed for threatening genocide. You've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez jumping in with her reckless self, dangerous and catastrophic, just talking all sorts of nonsense nonsense. They're talking about impeachment of Donald Trump. They're talking about war powers resolutions. They're talking like we're 5 minutes away from World War III. Meanwhile, nothing has happened. No strike, no bombs, no nukes, no war, just outrage. Now, here's where it gets even more crazier than that. Yes, more crazier than that. Because while they're building this entire case to remove President Donald J. Trump, behind the scenes, something very different is unfolding. And trust me, when you see what's actually happening while all of this panic is going on, you're going to understand why this whole thing didn't just fail, it completely backfired.
The joint force remains ready, if ordered or called upon, to resume combat operations with the same speed and precision as we've demonstrated over the last 38 days, and we hope that that is not the case.
Pakistan, which helped mediate the ceasefire, has invited Iran and the U.S. to meet in Islamabad on Friday for further discussion.
We will go for negotiations to see how serious the other side is.
Speaking in Hungary Wednesday morning, Vice President J.D. Vance called it a fragile truce.
If the Iranians are willing, in good faith, to work with us, I think we can make an agreement. If they're going to lie, if they're going to cheat, if they're going to try to prevent even the fragile truce that we've set up from taking place, then they're not going to be happy.
President Trump posted this morning on social media that the U.S. would be working with Iran to dig up their enriched uranium stockpile. And in exchange, America is talking with Iran about tariff and sanctions relief.
I'm sure their military is watching, but commerce will flow. And that's what you saw the markets react to, is that reality.
So now I want to slow down just for a second, because this entire meltdown that we just talked about, it all hinges on one thing: what Donald J. Trump actually said versus what people claimed he said. And this is where it gets almost comical. So Trump talks about ending a 47-year regime, that's the IRGC, which is essentially a government structure, and somehow this gets translated into he wants to wipe out 90 million civilians. Wait, what? How do you even get that from what he said? This is kind of like saying, like, if somebody says, like, we need to remove corruption in Washington, it means that they're planning to bulldoze the entire city. It doesn't make sense. No. And yet somehow that's the narrative that spread like wildfire. Go figure. I know. Politicians, pundits, headlines, all acting like this is a direct threat against the people of Iran, even though the actual statement literally says, God bless the people of Iran. So now you got a situation where the words say one thing, the reaction says something completely different, and once that snowball starts rolling, good luck stopping that sucker. I ain't getting in front of that one. By the way, guys, if you know someone who still thinks that this is about wiping out civilians, you might want to go ahead and send them this video just so they can see what actually happened, because what happens next, this is where the whole story flips.
This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran.
Yeah, this is a very fluid situation. So you have the president saying that he will agree to a 2-week ceasefire provided that Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. You've also seen just in the recent minutes, I mean, this is all coming together very quickly, the Iranians essentially agreeing to do so, but the devil is in the details here. What does it mean to reopen the Strait of Hormuz? The Iranian foreign minister in his statement said that the Iranians will reopen the Strait of Hormuz provided that ships coordinate with Iran's armed forces and subject to technical details. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that Iran gets to approve every ship that goes through the Strait? Is the United States okay with that as a definition of the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz? To me, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz is the international channels in the middle of the strait are open to anyone who wants to travel through them. They are treated as international waters. This kind of question is going to be playing out in the hours, maybe days to come.
I'm happy about where we are. I think the president has struck a good deal for the American people, but fundamentally, the Iranians have got to take the next step, or the president has a lot of options to go back to the war.
So while everybody's yelling and getting red in the face, while the Democratic Party is drafting removal plans, while cable news is basically preparing for the end of the world and getting up under their desks, Donald J. Trump is doing something very inconvenient for that narrative. He's negotiating quietly, strategically, and not directly either, through intermediaries, specifically back channel talks involving Pakistan. Now, Think about that for a second, okay? While the public story is Trump is about to start a war, the private reality is he's working to end one before it starts. That's not chaos. That's leverage. This is pressure. That's negotiation 101. Push hard publicly so that you can get movement privately. Now, here's the part nobody saw coming. Those negotiations, they're working, which means while politicians were busy going on TV, calling for impeachment, they were completely missing the fact that the situation was already shifting. And when that shift becomes public, it doesn't just contradict the narrative, it detonates it. Now, real quick, folks, before we move on, I need you to think about something, okay? A $280 lab bill doesn't sound like much, right? I mean, most people hear that and they probably think to themselves, yeah, it's annoying, but it's not life-changing money, but it is when you're on a fixed income. Now, one of our viewers told me that exact situation forced her into a decision that no one should have to make. Groceries or medication. Now, here's the part that really gets people. Her Medicare plan covered the visit, but not the test. Now, think about that for a second. You go in thinking that you're covered. Oh, this is a free visit to the doctor as usual. But then this bill shows up anyway for $280. This is the kind of gap that most people don't even realize exists until they get hit in the face with it. And of course, if we're being honest, you probably want to know about those gaps before they cost you money, right? This is exactly why Chapter exists. They go through your Medicare coverage and they catch the stuff that most people miss. The fine print, the exclusions, the wait. That's not covered? Yeah, all those moments get looked at and identified by Chapter for free for you. So that way you're not guessing and you actually know where you stand. And it makes sense why so many people are already calling them right now. Phone number right here. Call Chapter right now, 909-563-8279. Tell them that your friend Ron says hello, because when you realize that the average senior is saving about $1,100 a year just for calling Chapter, it stops feeling optional real fast. Now, after all the panic, after all the shouting and hoopla, I like saying that word, all the we're on the brink of disaster speeches, out comes the update, and it hits like a brick. Iran agrees to a deal, a ceasefire. Just like that. No massive strike, no escalation, no end of civilization, no World War III starting tomorrow. No, instead, bombings paused, 2-week ceasefire agreed, movement toward reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And suddenly, the entire tone changes, because the same situation that had politicians acting like the sky was falling, turns out it was part of a negotiation. And not just any old negotiation, a successful one, led by Donald J. Trump.
The U.S. president said the deal is subject to Iran agreeing to pause its blockade of the strait. He has offered American help with the traffic buildup. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said safe passage will be possible for 2 weeks in coordination with Iran's armed forces. Demonstrations in Iran following the truce announcement, but reports of strikes in Iran, Israel, and across several Gulf states despite the deal. Israel's military says it ceased fire against Iran, but remains on high alert. Now, Israel expressed support for the truce, but says it does not include Lebanon, where Israel and Hezbollah have been locked in battle.
We have the Iranians promising to open the Straits of Hormuz, and we have a negotiation that's supposed to start this weekend. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies.
Think about how fast that shift happens. We just went from he's about to destroy everything to wait, there's a deal in a matter of hours. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. The pressure worked, the strategy worked, and now everyone who went all in on the panic narrative is standing there holding absolutely nothing. Now, this is where it gets brutal, because once the deal drops, there's no hiding. The same people calling for removal, impeachment, emergency powers, they now have to explain something very simple. If Trump was about to start a catastrophic war, why did it end in a ceasefire? No bombs dropped, no war launched, no genocide, nothing. Just a deal. And that creates a problem, a big one, because the entire case built by the Democratic Party, the outrage, the urgency, the calls for the 25th Amendment, all depend on something happening that never happened. And now it looks like a warning and more like a massive overreaction. Actually, scratch that, guys. It actually looks like a political gamble. And this gamble just blew up right in their faces. You can almost feel the shift, because once reality hit, the Democratic narrative doesn't just weaken, it collapses.
Let's be honest with the American people. When it comes to war, there's always money. But when children need food, when families need health care, we are told there is not enough. Trump himself wants the Department of so-called War's budget to increase by $600 billion this year. The audacity to tell the American families to accept austerity as we race towards record-breaking military spending is outrageous and insulting. Republicans are talking about hard fiscal choices that our country must make while the Trump administration wages war of choice. Fiscal responsibility means nothing if it only applies to children, to workers, poor families, but never to war.
So let's go ahead and walk through this slowly, because this is where the whole thing starts to look a little ridiculous. If Donald J. Trump had launched an attack on Iran, you already know what we would hear. Reckless, dangerous, World War III, right? But then he doesn't attack. There's a deal. There's a ceasefire. And so what do we get? Weak, he caved, this is unacceptable. Wait, what? So just to be clear, if he acts, then he's wrong. But if he doesn't act, he's also wrong. So he can never be right no matter what he does. It's crazy. I mean, that's not just analysis. This is just opposition on autopilot, right? And people are starting to notice this, because you can't scream he's about to destroy the world 1 minute and then complain that he didn't destroy the world the next minute. That's not a position. This is a reflex. And once the audience sees that, the credibility starts slipping fast. This is like TDS, Trump deranged syndrome on steroids. Now, you would think that it would stop there, but it didn't. Oh no, they actually doubled down. You had lawmakers like Jason Crow and Mark Kelly stepping in. Yes, that Mark Kelly. Not just criticizing, but warning members of the US military. Can you believe Mark Kelly? Telling them if Trump gives certain orders, they may have a duty to refuse them. I mean, we're talking about framing this as illegal orders and war crimes. Now, think about how serious this is for a second, okay? This wasn't just political commentary anymore. This was pushing the idea that the president of the United States might give unlawful commands and that troops should be ready to ignore them. This is how far the panic went. Drop a Mark Kelly down below if you think Mark Kelly should be ashamed of himself, but this is how intense the narrative became. And now we fast forward just a little bit. No war, no orders, no crisis, just a ceasefire deal. So all of that buildup, all that warning, all of that this is it kind of energy, it lands on nothing. And then what happens? It doesn't just look wrong, it looks completely out of control. So just when you think that this couldn't get any messier, enter CNN. Because during all of this confusion, all this panic, all this breaking news energy, a report starts circulating. Claims that Iran had put out an official statement basically declaring victory over Donald J. Trump. Sounds dramatic, right? But there's just one small problem. According to Trump, it wasn't real. He comes out and says the statement was fake. Not just inaccurate, but fake. Linked back to some random site reportedly out of Nigeria, of all places, not to be confused with Scam Central, and then blasted out like it was legit. And now you've got a situation where the public is already confused, politicians are already panicking, and the media is potentially amplifying bad information. Now, this is gasoline on a fire that didn't even exist. It didn't even need to exist in the first place. But of course, when that happens, trust takes a hit. Because if you're getting something that big, that wrong, people start asking, well, what else are we being told that's not accurate? And that's the question. This is where things start getting dangerous for the narrative. Now, while all this is happening over there somewhere, there's another story that's unfolding over here, inside Iran, and it's not pretty. Reports start coming out about the regime's behavior. State messaging encouraging civilians, yes, civilians, to stand in strategic areas, power plants, checkpoints, basically putting themselves in harm's way. Now, whether you call that propaganda, desperation, or something else, it raises a serious contrast. Because Because while people here are arguing about what Trump might do, you've got a regime over there doing things that are very real. Now, add to that, you got communications blackouts, internet restrictions, families not knowing what's happening, and suddenly the conversation shifts. It's no longer just about what was said, it's about what actually is happening on the ground. And that contrast between perception and reality, this is what really starts waking people up. So when things look like they're calming down, here's another twist. Israel, not exactly celebrating the ceasefire here. In fact, reports start coming out that they're not happy with the terms at all. And then, almost immediately after the ceasefire announcement, a missile gets launched from Iran toward Israel. Intercepted, thankfully, but still, the timing could not be worse. So now you got a new question entering the conversation. Can Iran actually be trusted? Because on paper, there's a deal, but in reality, there are still threats. And this is where groups like Hezbollah come into the picture, because even if Iran signs something, do they control everything tied to them? Do they control the proxy networks? Do they control what happens next? That uncertainty right there, it keeps the tension alive, and it keeps the story from being over, and it gives critics like Mark Levin plenty of ammunition to say this deal might not hold. So now we've gone from meltdown to reversal to uneasy calm, and now a big old fat red question mark. So here's the part that really kind of flips everything, because through all of this, the panic, the outrage, the pressure, the criticism, Donald J. Trump, he makes the call. Not Israel, not the media, not the Democratic Party, him. And that matters, because there's been this narrative floating around for a very long time that Trump is somehow controlled by outside forces, that he doesn't make the final decision, that he's being manipulated and influenced. But this, I don't know, this cuts right through that. He pushes hard, he creates pressure, he gets movement, and then he makes the deal. That's not chaos, that's control. And at the end, here's what we're left with. Democrats called for removal over something that never happened. The media amplified a narrative that didn't hold. Iran folded into a ceasefire, and Trump, he walked away with a deal. That's why this hit so hard, because it wasn't just wrong, it was public, it was fast, and it was impossible to walk back. This is what a real political backfire looks like. Now, if you made it all the way through this, let me know what you're thinking about this. Did Democrats overplay their hand? Did this blow up the way that it looks like it did? Drop it in the comments down below. I can't wait to read what you guys are saying. And if you enjoyed this breakdown as much as I did, hit the like button on your way out, and I'll see you folks next time.